At 6:42 in the morning, I stared at one short text on my phone and felt my whole life tilt. Rachel, can you come by tonight? We need to talk about the timeline. My coffee maker burped and sputtered behind me, loud in the quiet of my house. The toast in the toaster burned because I forgot it was there. I did not move right away. I just stood at my kitchen counter like the wood under my palm could hold me steady. Timeline. That word always sounded like a plan, like something grown-up and safe. But in my chest, it felt like a door closing, like if I answered wrong, something important would break, and it would not be a cabinet hinge or a leaking pipe. My name is Daniel Hayes. I am 32. I fix things for a living. I fix doors that stick. I fix fences that lean. I fix railings that come loose. I like problems with clear edges. Tighten the screw. Replace the bolt. Patch the hole. Done. But love was not like that lately. Love had started to feel like pressure. I set my phone face down and took a slow breath. The house smelled like sawdust and old paint, a smell that never really left. 3 years ago, I bought this narrow two-story in Portland, Oregon. The stairs creaked. The porch sagged in the middle. It was not charming in a cute way, but it was solid. I had spent nights fixing it after long workdays, learning every weak spot and every stubborn nail. Most mornings, the silence comforted me. That morning, it felt like the silence was watching. I grabbed my jacket from the chair by the door. The canvas was worn soft at the cuffs, the seams a little frayed. That jacket had been with me through cold winters, messy jobs, and one breakup that took me months to recover from. It should have felt familiar. Today, it felt heavy. Outside, the early light was thin and pale. The air was cool enough to wake me up. Across the small strip of lawn between my place and the duplex next door, the upstairs window was glowing. Emma lived there. She moved in about 6 months ago. Quiet. Observant. The kind of neighbor who noticed the small things people usually missed. She worked nights at the hospital. I knew that because sometimes I saw her coming home when I was leaving for work. We waved. We made polite talk about the weather and parking. Nothing deep. Still, when her door opened and she stepped out onto the shared porch with a mug in her hand, my shoulders tightened, like my body knew something my mind was trying to ignore. She looked tired, but not in a messy way. In a real way. Hair pulled back, face clean, eyes steady. She noticed me watching and paused, like she was deciding whether to speak. "Morning," she said softly, like she did not want to wake the building. "Morning," I answered. The porch boards creaked under my boots when I shifted my weight. A cold breeze slipped under my collar. Emma's eyes moved over me, quick but careful, like she was reading something. "You look like you didn't sleep," she said. I smiled because it was easier than telling the truth. "Long night." She nodded like I meant more than those 2 words. There was a silence after that, but it did not feel awkward. It felt like something sitting between us, calm and heavy. Our shoulders were closer than they needed to be, and neither of us stepped away. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The moment broke. She glanced down, then back up at me. "I should go inside," she said. I watched her turn and slip through her door. The screen door closed softly behind her. I stood there a second longer than I should have, then walked down the steps and into my truck. Work usually saved me. Work was clear. Someone called. Something was broken. I fixed it. They thanked me. I drove away. But that day, work only helped until it did not. I spent the morning repairing a fence for a couple in southeast Portland. They argued while I worked, not loud enough to make a scene, but sharp enough to cut. Their voices stayed low, like they were trying to hide it from me. I hammered nails into weathered wood, steady rhythm, hands doing what they knew. Still, every few minutes, my mind drifted back to Rachel's text. Timeline. Decisions. Expectations. By noon, my chest felt tight. I ate a sandwich in my truck, crumbs on my jacket, staring out at traffic like the answer might be hidden between cars. I tried to remember when planning a future started to feel like a threat instead of a promise. My last job canceled, so I got home early. The porch boards were warm from the sun. I unlocked my door, the key sticking like it always did, and I heard a sharp crack from next door, followed by a muffled curse. I stepped back outside without thinking. Emma was crouched by her front steps with a toolbox open beside her. A railing hung loose at an awkward angle. Her shoulders were tense with frustration, like she had been fighting it for a while. "Need a hand?" I asked. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face, then relief. "If you don't mind. It came loose and I can't get it to sit right." "I've got it." I set my jacket over the back of a chair and knelt beside her. Our knees brushed for a second, and my breath caught like I had been punched gently in the ribs. Emma did not pull away. She just shifted her weight and held the screws steady while I lined up the rail. We worked in quiet focus. My hands were steady, firm on the wood. Her fingers hovered close to mine, warm. The railing slid back into place with a solid thud that made us both exhale. "There," I said. "That should hold." She tightened the last screw and leaned back. "Thank you." I was about to give up. "Sometimes it just needs a second set of hands," I told her. She stood and disappeared inside for a moment. When she came back, she handed me a bottle of water. Our fingertips brushed by accident, and a strange spark moved through me, quick and sharp. We stood on the porch in the afternoon light. The air smelled like warm wood and distant rain. Emma watched me like she was waiting for me to say something I had not admitted yet. "You look distracted," she said. I let out a short laugh. "Is it that obvious?" She tilted her head a little. "You carry things quietly." Those words landed deeper than they should have. I took a sip of water, buying time. "My girlfriend wants to talk about our future tonight," I said. "The whole timeline thing." Emma's eyes stayed on mine. "And that scares you?" I did not answer right away. A car passed on the street. Tires hummed. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked once and stopped. "Yes," I said finally, "because if I say no, everything changes." "And if you say yes?" she asked, voice gentle. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I had no answer that felt true. That evening, Rachel arrived a little after 7. She brought energy into my living room before she even set her bag down. She talked about plans like they were already real. She smiled. She touched my arm. But when her fingers caught on my jacket sleeve hanging on the chair, the contact felt wrong, like she was holding a version of me that didn't exist anymore. "We need to be honest," she said, finally slowing down. "I need to know you're all in." I watched her mouth move, listened to her words, and felt my fear sharpen into something clear. I asked for time. Rachel's face tightened. To her, time sounded like rejection. She left upset, the door closing harder than it needed to. The house went quiet again, and this time the quiet felt hollow. Near midnight, I stepped out onto the porch for air. My chest still felt tight. Across the shared porch, Emma's light was on. She was sitting on her steps, wrapped in a thin blanket, a mug in her hands. She looked up when she heard me, like she had been expecting me. "Rough night," she said. I nodded and sat a careful distance away. The cold air bit at my skin. Emma shifted, and the edge of her blanket brushed my arm. After a second, she let it stay there, like it belonged. We sat in silence that felt heavy, but not empty. Then she spoke, quiet and certain. "She doesn't love you," Emma said. "I can feel it." The words hit me hard, like a truth I didn't want to hear out loud. My throat tightened. I stared at the porch boards, at the worn grain of the wood, at my jacket folded nearby like a shadow. I swallowed. "Then what is true love?" I asked. Emma did not answer right away. She watched the street, calm and thoughtful, then turned to look at me. "True love," she said softly, "does not make you afraid to breathe." Quote. And in that moment, with her blanket touching my arm and her eyes holding mine, I realized something had already changed, even if I didn't know what to do with it yet. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with my jacket folded over my chest like someone had placed it there on purpose. For a second, I did not remember why my body felt tight. Then Emma's voice came back, calm and sure, and my stomach dropped. "True love does not make you afraid to breathe." I sat up and listened to the house. The fridge hummed. A bird tapped at the gutter outside. Everything looked normal, but I felt like I had stepped into a life that did not fit me the same way anymore. I checked my phone. One missed call from Rachel. No message. I showered, dressed, and stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. My face looked the same. The problem was the pause behind my eyes. When I picked up my jacket, my fingers found the frayed cuff and stayed there. I thought about leaving it behind. I put it on anyway, like I was not ready to change my habits as fast as my heart was changing. Outside, the air smelled like rain that still had not fallen. Emma's door was closed. For reasons I did not understand, that disappointed me. Work was busy. A leaky sink trap in a diner. A cabinet door that would not close in an older woman's kitchen. A loose porch step on a rental house. Simple fixes. Clean results. Still, every time I tightened a screw, I thought of timelines and pressure and the way Emma looked at me like she could see the truth under my words. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. Rachel. I stared at her name until the screen dimmed. I did not answer. It was not spite. It was fear mixed with something firmer. I was tired of talking like my feelings were a problem to be managed. I finished the job I was on and drove home slower than usual. When I pulled up, Emma was outside, kneeling by a small row of pots near the front steps of her duplex. Dark soil stained her gloves. A few tiny herb plants sat beside her, ready to be planted. She looked up when she heard my truck. Her smile was small but real. You're home early. Job canceled, I said. She studied my face for a second. You look different. Different how? Like you finally let something go, she said. I exhaled, surprised by the truth in that. I stepped closer and sat on the stone edge near her pots. My jacket brushed her knee when I settled. I waited for her to shift away. She did not. I didn't sleep, I admitted. Emma pressed soil around a plant with careful hands. Because of her? Because of me, I said. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. She looked at me then, her eyes steady. What did you feel last night? I swallowed. Afraid. And then, for a second, not afraid. Her mouth softened like she understood. She reached into her pocket and held out a small packet of seeds. Hold this for me, please. I took it. Our fingers brushed. The touch was small, but it made my heart beat louder. I watched her plant another herb. Rachel wants answers, I said. She wants a plan. And you want air, Emma replied. I stared at the seeds in my hand, then at her hands in the soil. When did planning start to feel like a trap? Quote, Emma's shoulders lifted in a small shrug. When it stops being about two people and starts being about a schedule. I nodded slowly. She texted me yesterday morning. Timeline. Decisions. She talked like we were already walking down a hallway I didn't choose. Emma wiped dirt from her glove onto the grass. Then do not walk down it. It's not that simple, I said, even though part of me knew it was. She turned to face me fully. It can be simple. It will just hurt. That word sat between us. Hurt. I thought about Rachel's face when she left, upset and disappointed. I thought about my own chest tightening whenever she talked about the future like it was an order. Emma's voice stayed gentle. You don't hate her. No, I said. I don't. But you don't feel safe in it, she said. I stared at the ground. No. Emma nodded once like she had been waiting for that. She shifted closer just enough that our shoulders touched. The contact felt warm. My body relaxed before my mind could argue. What about you? I asked, trying to move the focus off me. How do you always sound so sure? Quote. Emma's eyes flicked away for a moment. I'm not always sure. She reached for a pot, but her hand paused mid-air like she was deciding whether to tell me something. Then she picked up the pot anyway, keeping her voice calm. I learned what love feels like when it is wrong. I waited. She kept working, but her movements slowed. I was engaged, she said quietly. A few years ago, he wanted everything planned. Wedding, house, kids. He had a 5-year plan like it was a job. I looked at her, surprised. She never talked about herself that way. I thought that was what love was supposed to be, she continued. Being chosen, being included, being promised. What happened? I asked. Emma's mouth tightened. I started to feel like I could not breathe, like I had to earn my place every day. One night I told him I was overwhelmed. He laughed and said I was being dramatic. The anger in my chest came fast and sharp. And you left. Quote, I stayed longer than I should have, she said, honest. Then I left. I moved. I took a night shift job because I wanted quiet. I wanted my life to be mine again. She pressed the last herb plant into place. Then she looked at me. So when I heard your voice last night, I knew that sound. I knew the kind of fear it was. I held my breath. The air felt thick. You heard my voice? I asked. Emma's cheeks colored slightly. Your door closed hard. Your steps were heavy. I was on the porch because I couldn't sleep. I saw you come out. I nodded, my throat tight. It mattered to me that she noticed. It mattered more than it should have. We sat in silence for a moment, the afternoon light warm on the porch boards. I could smell the soil, the clean green scent of herbs, and the faint soap smell on Emma's skin. My phone buzzed again. Rachel. I looked at the screen. My hand shook a little. Emma did not tell me what to do. She just watched, calm, like she trusted me to choose. I answered. Daniel, Rachel said, her voice strained. Can you talk to me, please? I can, I said, but not like last night. There was a pause. What does that mean? Quote, It means I'm not going to pretend, I said. I'm not going to say yes to make you feel better. Rachel's breath caught. So you're saying no? I'm saying I don't know if I can give you what you want, I said. Not on your timeline. Not if it means I stop being honest with myself. Her voice went quiet and sharp. Are you seeing someone else? Quote. The question hit me like cold water. I looked at Emma without thinking. She did not react, but her eyes softened, like she already knew this moment was coming. No, I said into the phone. I'm not. Rachel was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, Then why does it sound like you're already gone? Because I am, I thought. Because I felt peace for the first time last night, on a porch next to someone who didn't ask me to perform. I'm not trying to hurt you, I said, but I can't keep forcing it. Rachel's voice cracked. So what happens now? My heart pounded. This was the door that only swung one way. I need to talk tonight, I said, in person. But I need you to come here calm. No speeches, no plans, just truth. Quote. Rachel hesitated. Fine, tonight. I ended the call and stared at the phone like it might burn my hand. Emma's voice was soft. That was brave. It didn't feel brave, I admitted. It felt like jumping. Emma stood and brushed dirt from her gloves. Sometimes that is the same thing. I stood too. My jacket shifted on my shoulders. I realized I was sweating even in the cool air. What if I ruin everything? I asked. Emma looked at me for a long moment. If the truth ruins it, then it was already cracked. Her words steadied me, but they also scared me. Because what I wanted next was not just advice. I wanted her closer. I wanted her to stay on that porch with me through the night. I did not say that. I only nodded. Emma turned toward her door, then paused. Daniel. Yeah? Her eyes held mine. If you feel like you cannot breathe again tonight, come outside. Do not stay trapped inside a room with fear. I swallowed. Okay. She went inside, the screen door closing softly behind her. I stood alone on my porch, staring at my front door like it was a gate I had to walk through. Hours later, the sun fell low. My house was clean, but my thoughts were not. I kept replaying Rachel's question, Are you already gone? At 7:06, headlights swept across my living room wall. A car door shut. Footsteps climbed my porch steps. I opened my front door, and Rachel stood there with her eyes wide and her jaw tight, like she had come ready to fight for a future I was no longer sure I wanted. Behind the thin wall to my right, I heard Emma's door open, and I knew, with a sharp rush in my chest, that whatever happened next would change everything. Rachel stood in my doorway, with her shoulders squared like she was bracing for impact. She looked good in the way she always did. Hairstyled, perfume soft but sharp. Eyes bright with the kind of certainty I used to admire. But tonight that certainty felt like a rope pulled too tight. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped back and let her pass. The air changed as soon as she entered, like my living room belonged to her plans now. She set her bag on the chair where my jacket usually sat. She looked around like she was checking for evidence of a life she feared she was losing. I closed the door and stayed standing. Rachel turned fast. So, talk? I nodded. Yeah. She crossed her arms. You scared me today. You sounded like you were breaking up with me over the phone. My throat tightened, but I forced the words out clean. I was telling you the truth. I have been holding my breath for months. Rachel's face flinched like I had slapped her. Holding your breath. Daniel, what does that even mean? It means every time you say timeline, I feel like I'm being pushed into something I'm not ready for, I said. It means I nod and smile, and then I go home and feel sick. It means I keep thinking love is supposed to feel different than this. Rachel's eyes shined, but her voice stayed firm. Love is work. I know, I said, but love is not supposed to feel like I'm failing a test. Her mouth opened, then closed. She took a step closer. I'm not testing you. I'm trying to build something real, quote. I want something real too, I said, but not something that makes me afraid to breathe. The sentence hung in the air. Rachel blinked hard. Who told you that? My stomach dropped. I could have lied. I could have softened it. But I was tired of twisting myself into shapes that made other people comfortable. I hesitated. Emma. Rachel froze. Your neighbor. Yes, I said. A sharp laugh escaped Rachel's throat, not amused, more like pain. So that's it. You're taking relationship advice from a woman you barely know. It wasn't advice, I said. It was a mirror. Rachel stepped back as if the floor moved under her. Are you in love with her? The question hit me so hard my chest actually hurt. I looked at Rachel and realized she deserved a real answer, not a careful one. I don't know, I said honestly. But I know I feel calm when I'm around her, and I have not felt calm with you in a long time. Rachel's eyes filled. So I'm the bad guy. No, I said quickly, you're not. You want a future. You want certainty. That's not wrong. Quote. Then why does this feel like I'm being punished for wanting a life with you, she asked, voice shaking now. Because I'm not the man you need, I thought. Because you want a door that only swings one way, and I can't pretend I'm ready to walk through it. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm admitting I can't meet you where you are. Not the way you deserve. Rachel stared at me like she was trying to force my words to change. Then her shoulders fell, all that energy draining out. So what are you saying? She whispered. I swallowed. My voice came out quiet. I'm saying we should stop. Before we turn this into something we hate. Rachel pressed her fingers to her mouth. A tear slid down her cheek and she wiped it away fast like she was angry at her own body for showing it. I gave you everything, she said. I know, I said, my eyes burning. And I'm sorry I took it when I wasn't sure. Rachel nodded slowly like she was trying to accept the shape of the moment. She reached for her bag and slung it over her shoulder. I hope she's worth it, she said, voice sharp again because pain needed somewhere to go. I shook my head. This isn't about her being worth it. This is about me finally being honest. Rachel looked at me a long time, then she walked past me, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch. The cool air rushed in. I followed her to the doorway. Rachel paused at the top step. The porch light made her face look softer and older at the same time. She didn't turn around at first. Then she said quietly, if you ever figure out what you want, don't wait too long to say it. And then she left. Her car started. The headlights swept across the street. The sound faded down the block until the night was still again. I stood there like my legs had forgotten how to move. I had expected relief. Instead, I felt empty. Like I had pulled out a nail that had been in me for too long, and now I could finally feel the hole. I shut the door, leaned my forehead against it, and let myself breathe. A slow, full breath. It felt strange, like I had forgotten how. Then I remembered Emma's words, if you feel like you cannot breathe again tonight, come outside. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. The fabric was still warm from earlier. I slipped it on, not because it protected me, but because it felt like something steady in my hands. I stepped out onto the porch. Emma's upstairs light was on. Her door opened a second later, like she had been listening for my footsteps. She stepped out, wrapped in her blanket, mug in hand, hair loose now, eyes tired but alert. She saw my face and did not ask questions right away. She simply came down and sat on the steps, leaving space beside her. I sat. The porch boards creaked under our weight. The street was quiet. A far-off siren moved through the city. like a reminder that life kept happening even when yours cracked open. Emma finally spoke. Is she gone? Yes, I said. Emma nodded once. Are you okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say no. The truth was both. I feel awful, I admitted, and I feel free. Emma's eyes softened. That makes sense. I stared at my hands. My fingers shook a little. I didn't plan for this. I didn't plan for any of it. Emma looked out at the street, then back at me. Maybe that's the point. A cold breeze slipped across the porch. Emma's blanket shifted, and without thinking, I reached for the edge and pulled it slightly so it covered both of us. My arm brushed hers. She did not pull away. We sat like that for a long moment, sharing warmth without touching more than we had to, but the closeness felt louder than any words. I'm scared, I said quietly. Emma's voice was steady. Of what? Of hurting people, I said. Of being wrong. Of starting something new and realizing I don't know how to do it. Emma turned her head toward me. You don't have to start anything tonight. I swallowed. Then what do I do? She watched me, her eyes calm and serious. You breathe. The simplicity of it made my throat sting. I let out a slow breath, then another. The fear did not vanish, but it loosened. Emma's shoulder pressed lightly against mine. Daniel, she said, soft but clear. Yeah. I meant what I said last night, she told me. True love doesn't make you afraid to breathe, but true love also doesn't rush you. It doesn't demand you prove it on command. I turned to look at her. The porch light caught the edges of her face. There was no performance in her. No pressure. Just presence. The quiet between us thickened into something electric. I realized my hand was resting on the porch board near hers. Our fingers were inches apart. Not touching, but close enough to feel the heat. I don't know what true love is, I said, voice rough. Emma nodded. Neither do I, not fully. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. But I know what it isn't. I felt my heart beat hard against my ribs. I moved my fingers 1 inch closer. Emma did not move away. She inhaled, slow, like she was giving herself permission. Then she placed her hand over mine. It was not dramatic. It was not fast. It was warm and steady, like a promise made without words. My breath caught again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was the shock of realizing I was being held in a way I did not have to earn. Emma's thumb brushed the back of my hand once, a small motion that felt louder than a kiss. You don't have to decide what this is tonight, she said. I looked at her, and my voice came out honest, simple, but I want to. Emma's eyes widened slightly, then softened. She did not smile big. She smiled small, like she was trying to protect the moment from getting too loud. What do you want? She asked. I swallowed, then said it. I want to choose something that feels real, something that feels like breathing. Emma held my hand tighter, just a little. Then start with this, she said. I leaned closer, slow enough that she could stop me. She didn't. Her forehead touched mine. Our breaths mixed in the cold air. And when her lips met mine, it was gentle and careful, like the first page of a story you already know is going to change your life. We pulled back, still close. Emma whispered, "That's true love." I looked at her and felt the answer settle in my chest like a warm weight. True love was not a timeline. True love was not pressure dressed up as promises. True love was a porch at midnight, a shared blanket, a steady hand, and the freedom to breathe. If you enjoyed this story, share it in the comments and tell me what you think true love really is, and follow for more romantic audio stories.